So what's going on? So this video is going to be about the 65th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education. And it's still a very touchy subject. Did ending segregation in schools really benefit African Americans? Has it been a balanced and a level field for its higher learning goals? And with busing and other forms to try to create less tension, has it worked? Now, the late great Thurgood Marshall was very instrumental in ending this. Um, School systems still use a racial monopoly. They still whitewash, and it's still a supremacy as far as like what really benefits. So with schools and everything, and really, it's interesting that they're reading today that Trump's appointed judges and have dodged the questions about Brown versus the Board of Education. Because you can best believe them good old boys didn't really want integration. And really, to answer the question, I'm generalizing with school still doesn't really teach African Americans about contributions to society in a general. If you're doing Black History Month, that still hasn't really balanced. The only things that schools can generally really balance on is math and English. And science is an elective because that's something that you either benefit from your own personal feelings or not. But it's really not really a course that, it depends on your own personal take. But if we're just strictly sticking to what is really the generalized, we're just strictly talking math and English, and that's it. Everything else is subjective. Physical education is subjective, arts are subjective, and history is very biased and subjective too when you put that in consideration and when you do the history. So I'm gonna say it like this. I think that if school was really integrated, they would have a full courses that balance where everybody would know more than what they are led to believe. Because if you think about it, we're only talking 65 years where Brown versus the Board of Education. So imagine if you were from late 1800s to 1953, you weren't allowed in. And some places were still segregating all the way up onward, despite the laws being passed. So ask yourself how free and how much has the education really benefited? That's a lot to pontificate, a lot to think about because, again, school systems have not balanced a full balance criteria at all. Like SATs are very biased. It's funny when I see mainly whites who are trying to buy their children into college when already they have the school system in their hip pocket. I mean, if you're white, you already got the school system in your pocket because you're learning only one form of education, only one form of history. Math and English aside, everything else is subjective. So, what are you really being taught in school? And from a racial perspective, are you even close to learning about who you really are? Are you really going to be taught more than just a handful of black people that they've elected to show you for Black History Month? You know, I think that the school system has always been flawed. And when you're African American, it's really even more flawed because there is no proper balance. You want current events. If you're sitting in a classroom in 2019, you're going to want to hear about Colin Kaepernick in a classroom and why the national anthem is racist and all the histrionics behind that and how it ties in from the past, the present, and to the future. You should have that being taught. So how do these channels be properly enlightened? There's got to be some ways that it balances. But while it passed that, allowing it, you still had the signs, you still had the racial discrimination, which was very much evident. And it just doesn't change in 65 years. It doesn't. Still a lot more work needs to be done. So for all the people that fought to integrate with it, it has its purpose and its place, but there still needs more to be done to balance it out because we don't have a balanced justice in the classroom to teach the children about what is happening. have the history to understand of Black Lives Matter, have the history to understand about the police brutality, how what happens out in the public impacts what goes on in the eye and beyond. Those things and the people that have contributed need to be, you know, needs to be more of that. If you see a movie like Hidden Figures and you're doing science, you need to understand people behind that. So the education incorporates everything, not subjectivity, which the American school system is guilty of pimping and fostering. It's a limited basis that does not give a full account, and they have been guilty of it for over 400 plus years. That's my take about the Brown versus Board of Education. Turning 65 years old, they still got a ways to go. Feel free to leave them comments, hit subscribe when the bell rings for a new video, and enlighten your mind, educate your brain, find your source of inspiration. Stay tuned.